Oh boy, it's almost like Santa Claus came. What's halfway here? Wait for it. Wait for it. Ah, yes. Flat stock. Oil hardening tool steel. Just the thing we need to make either a big sword or a few knives with. Very good. Humble beginnings, Mark. Humble beginnings. Okay, I have a nice piece of 01 tool steel, oil hardening tool steel. This is flat ground stock. It's 1/8 thick, 2.5 inches wide. This project is going to be for a chef's knife for my brother. Now it's wider than I really need for a chef's. I don't have any 2-inch stock. So I'll make a chef's out of this, and I'll also make him one of those cleavers. This process is going to be to profile, then machine, and then get our 30-degree lead-in on, and then heat treat. And after that, we'll do our final grind. Just a little word here. If you're not going to put it back in its protective or paper sheath that it came with, strictly so you could identify the material, put an indelible marker somewhere and write down what it is, because I have all kinds of steel in my steel bin, and if you take a piece of A6, let's say, and you do a project and you treat it like 01, you're going to ruin your project. So always know what every steel is different, so keep them identified. So we're going to get started with this, and this video is just going to be just a highlight of the steps we take. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now here we are. In knife grinding, they call these the 45s. Close to the scribed edge, about at least 5-7 thousandths away from each side, or from the center line. On these real thin blades, they're probably more like 30 degrees. Okay, that gives us a starting point. So we're edgewise, we're probably somewhere around 20 thousandths, which is where I want to be right now. So like I said, these long, thin pieces, you're better off grinding hard than trying to save time or whatever and grinding while they're still soft, because they will warp and heat treat. I do caveman heat treating here, right? There's no vacuum furnaces and fixtures and all of that stuff, so hopefully we'll get the forge chooching tomorrow, and we'll get these guys hardened up. Good morning, ladies and tender young rapscallions. So, you've seen this before, so I'm not going to go through the whole enchilada with you, but getting the forge fired up, and we have our quenching oil on standby. It's been heated up by dropping a red hot piece of iron in it. And I'm using 50-50 hardwood charcoal and anthracite to minimize the scale. So we're going to get these blades going. And as a treat a la special, it is a beautiful 52-degree morning in mid-January here in New Jersey. Can't beat that. Okay, man, this is starting to look like the fires of hell. That's what we want. We'll get back to you. Okay, now after we've established the flat grind on the machine, which is with 60 and 120 belt, next step is handwork. And the reason why you handwork, you want to get these vertical scratches out that the machine leaves, and you want a nice satin finish. It's the difference between a good looking blade and a shitty looking blade. Now, I use my regular silicone carbide abrasive cloth, and for a backer I use the stuff I use for my wood turning. And there's various. These have a little bit more flexibility to them. I'll take this up to 220, I guess. And some guys use a block of wood, make a sanding block. Some guys use a block of wood and a block of wood with a piece of leather on one side. And the whole purpose is to blend in especially on a wide blade like this, all of these minute changes in angle that you just, no matter how good of a grinder you are, and I'm not that good of a grinder, you can't get perfect on the machine. This gives a nice blend and gives a nice satin finish. One of the tricks of the trade is use some Windex or WD-40. Windex is a lot cleaner, doesn't leave an oily residue. And change your paper frequently. So this takes a while. It isn't as much pressure as it is the action of the abrasive. And there's really no shortcut here. It just takes a little time and a little bit of elbow grease. For the handle scales, I got these nicely figured maple blocks that I'm going to use, and they're going to match the maple that I'm going to make the sayas out of. What I generally do so I make sure these blocks are nice and square first. Hit them on the sander or whatever. I don't make a project out of it. I put a drop of CA glue, thin CA glue, just to kind of hold this here. And I'll drill through the whole block at one time. And then I'll cut it in half for my two halves. So I know some guys drill one at a time, but I don't see the need to have to do that. It's wood. I'm using this brass 1/4 inch dowel, and it has a mosaic on the end of it. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it out, but when it's all sanded up, it's a mosaic pin, they call it. You would get a better view of it when it's done, I'm sure. Anyway, 1.5 inches long. Alrighty then. Now we're all clamped up with that epoxy cure, and then we will shape the handles. As a side note, those of you might be curious how much metal comes off the knife. Well, outside of floor sweepings, this is the second out of my cooling bucket here. And this here is a good 6 ounces. So you grind a lot of metal off when you're doing these knives. I've seen some guys take this stuff and forge it and turn it into something, believe it or not. But I got better things to do. Oh well. That's just a side note. At this point, I want to just show you a little bit. Now, this is not a gallery piece. This is a functional knife when it's done. But here is a handle shaped and sanded. Now, one of the things I want to demonstrate is that this handle, once shaped, there's only so much you could do on a machine. So I took this handle to 600 grit by hand. Just sanding progressive grits by hand. I know my camera's going all over the place. I'm trying to get close so you could see the pins there, but there, focus, you fuck. Anyway, these pins are pretty cool. They're matrix, or the dot matrix pins. Don't be afraid of some handwork, guys. Believe me, your projects will show with handwork. You could sand this on the machine and get a so-so finish. This finish feels like a glass ass. It's nice. Now, I'm probably going to stain it. It's a little bit lighter maple than I want, but I'll put a few coats of sealer on it, and we'll see how it looks after that and decide what we're going to do as far as stain. But I just wanted it to demonstrate a point. Don't be afraid of handwork. You know, we have all kinds of machines that do all kinds of stuff, but that's what the cheap Chinese stuff does also. You know, getting a custom knife made by hand is not that much more effort. It gives you a little exercise. So anyway, that's this step. Now, what is apparent is I'm going to leave these handle scales natural, and I'm going to use a natural maple for a saya. That's not blood here, by the way. I was messing around with some dyes, and you know how it goes. Anyway, saya. Saya is a fancy word for a wood sheath. It's basically 3 pieces. This side here is sanded down a little thinner than this side, and you glue this all together and you make a wooden sheath, and then you shape it and whatnot. Couple of schools of thought here. I know guys who make sayas. Mike Elkim of Elkim Knives, he makes his sayas so the blades fit in very tightly, and you know, I don't agree with that school of thought. Because we do have a pin here that we're going to turn and put in here to retain the blade. I don't think that in a kitchen where humidity and moisture and everything is present, that you might not want that tightness, because this thing will just split on you if it starts moving around, and we all know that wood does move around unless it's stabilized. Secondly, why would you want to run your cutting edge against hardwood every time with force every time you take this thing in and out? So I leave my sayas a little bit on the loose side. They fit in nice. And I know that a lot of people don't even use these things. Once they get them, they put the knife in a knife block, or they'll put the knife on a magnet or whatever. So anyway, it's not rocket science. We'll sand these up, make them kind of pretty, shape them, and we'll get back to you.
But we are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years, and we must do it.
We're focusing our immigration system on working families.
No, I would say that who see themselves in that tape will ask themselves why they feel differently on this issue that you have brought up. Senator Tom Cotton, very good speech tonight, sir. Many thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, it's done. Finished product. I hope that's in the shot for you. And these pins retain your blade in the protective saya. This is the chopper. One. I don't know how good you could see that. You know, I don't want to not have it in shot, but came out pretty good. And I don't have any hair to shave off my arms anymore, but as you can see, nice and sharp. And this 01 tool steel holds an edge well. It was a fun project. Hope my brother gets good use out of these. These are not museum pieces or gallery pieces by any stretch of the imagination. I really didn't go overboard on the saya, just kept it simple. And this was my first attempt at making a halfway decent and useful knife, and came out well. I made a couple for myself, but I didn't really care what they looked like. Learned from this project, there's certain things that I think can be done much better, and if I ever do one again, which I probably will, but very functional. And that's what I was after, more than beauty. I've seen some chef's knives and other kitchen knives that are just too beautiful to use, you know, but if you take care of a knife, it should last you a long, long time. So I'm just going to put a light coat of oil on these blades and ship them out to my brother. Hopefully he'll make something decent with them. But anyway, so that's the knife project. I enjoyed it. Try it yourself. You know, it's not as difficult as it seems. Take your time. Think about what you're doing. I think it was fun. So, thanks for watching, and when I think of something else to make, you'll be the first to know.